So today's video is about the beginning of our adventure of getting lithium batteries. And Sue and I have been full-time RV since June of 2017. And quite honestly, if I could do things over again, I would have started my lithium adventure back then. Sue and I did not know how long we would be RVing with our 2014 Newmar Dutch Star that we bought in June 2017. We didn't know if it was going to be a 6-month endeavor or a lifelong endeavor. And as luck would have it for us, this baby has turned into our magic carpet that takes us all over the place. Now, the reason I say I wish I could do things over was because when we first bought this thing, we had batteries that were compromised and we did not know that. And when I say compromised, I'm talking in terms of these batteries were shot when I bought it. Back then I didn't have a YouTube channel, so I didn't have advice to give you. My advice is when you buy used, you always make sure that your rig is certified by a RV inspector, because they will look at things that you don't even know about. They certainly would have found out that my batteries were shot. Well, at the time, lithium batteries were super duper expensive. We didn't know how we were going to be doing our RVing. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put super duper AGM batteries in, and that's what I did. You'll notice I have 8 Lifeline batteries in here. The previous owner had apparently ruined the original set of batteries. He replaced them with 8 interstate batteries. He ended up ruining those. This is in 3 years' time, went through 2 sets of batteries. And then when I inherited it, I put these 8 Lifeline batteries in. I think it was about $4,000 installed for these batteries. When I look back at how the installation was done, you can get a little closer, honey. They had to redo some of the cables. And when you look at the diameter of some of these cables interconnecting some of the posts, I'm sure this is not done right. I, in fact, had some of these cables refigured after the fact when I had this shunt put in, because I also inherited with this rig a solar system on the roof, a 1200 watt solar system. Sue, why don't you come over to this compartment? I also inherited down in this bay this Outback solar charge controller and the on-off switches for the battery and the solar, that particular circuit breaker. I can tell you that when I first started RVing with this thing, I did not trust this. I did not trust the way the batteries were set up, because I think that's why they were all cooked out from this not being set up with my solar panels that are up on the roof. So for the first couple years, I did not use it. So I'm going to send my camera person in to show you how difficult this is the day I would need to have this worked on when I'm in the middle of nowhere. Camera person, would you like to go inside here? So you'll notice on the left, my camera person is going by the circuit breaker and the Outback charge controller for the solar system, and that's reasonable to get at. But as you go deeper into the motor coach here, up on the center rails, which is impossible to get at unless you have abdominal muscles and you're young, is the inverter. Now, I have no trouble that I know of with the inverter, but it is in fact 10 years old and exceedingly difficult to get at if it needed to be worked on. I certainly would not be able to do it. So the goal is to pull that inverter out. So now these AGM batteries here are 68 pounds each, and there's 8 of them. And this metal tray that pulls out so you can service them is 75 pounds. So when I redo this with lithium, all of these batteries, all of these cables, and this metal tray are going to be history. And I'm hoping, even when I include the plywood, that this is going to be all plywooded in, I'm counting on a good solid, maybe 260 pound reduction in this area, the weight. and that will reflect on my front tire, which is so close to the rating of the Michelin tire charts that I run 230 PSI in my front tires. Now, will I decrease when I lose this weight? No, I'll view it as a safety margin. Okay, sorry, 130 pounds. So one of the things that we're gonna have to do in this area, because this compartment here is not environmentally controlled at this time. In fact, if you look up over to the left here, so you can see that you know, if a mackerel or a fish decided to jump through there, it would come over that metal wall. And one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to completely enclose and semi-insulate this to keep water and the environment out. And in fact, when all of this cabling is removed, we're going to blow a hole through this wall. We have to be careful. There's a strut in there at an angle, but above the strut and below the strut, they're going to bust that wall out so that the heat that's in here can escape, and in winter the heat that's needed to be harvested or retained from the storage bay area can in fact come this way and keep the batteries warm in a cold environment. This is going to look dramatically different when we're all done, and it's going to be a major improvement. I want to say in general here that what you're looking at here is a 2014 Newmar Dutch Star, and I don't know what year it was, but I'm going to take a wild guess. In about 2016 or so, when they went to the Star Foundation, where it got slightly taller and they made the foundation a little sturdier, and they were able to raise up this whole surface, you will have more distance to work with. You're going to know if you have that type of setup. If your door has got a drop hinge where when you open the door, if the door drops down with kind of a fancy linkage, then that means that your distance here that you're going to have to work with is going to be substantially higher than mine. This is going to be a challenge to make it work with a Victron multi-plus charger in here. That's why we're thinking that it probably isn't going to go here. It's probably going to go in there up between the rails. We literally don't have any plan. That's one of the beauties of working with a place like National Indoor that's got a lot of depth of experience. We've got great facilities that we'll be able to work in. The coach is not going to have to move in and out because it's in the way. They got tons of room in there. We're on day 2 of our lithium battery upgrade. Jim is working on redoing the battery bay and sealing it, putting a wood floor in. It's protected underneath with sheet metal, and the inside wood interior is all fitted with carpeting. That's what he's working on now. Here's the empty bay next to me in the G-roll, and I thought I'd take an opportunity to show you what it looks like. The G-roll is the overflow roll for special jobs that require a lot of room, and that is differentiated against a regular bay here where you come in through the overhead door. The G-roll is accessed by this door, and then they can either back out like that coach just did that started up when I turned the video on, or it can go out this way. Once we're ripping into this thing, it's going to stay for a while, and we'll be able to study up and move components around and kind of build it as we go. So why don't you come along with us on this adventure, and in typical AGM fashion, we'll show you every single step along the way, and maybe even some you don't even want to watch, but it should be exciting. Let's get going. Before I show you what you're going to see in part 2 and part 3 videos coming up in a few weeks, I want to introduce you to Jim, Matt, and Justin. And trust me, without these three guys, I wouldn't have anything to show you. They were all a dream to work with. They worked unbelievably hard. And as you're going to see here, very professional work was done. Now, I got to be honest with you, it was tough to catch things that Jim did, because if I lollygagged at all and walked away, he'd have an hour and a half work done, and I was only gone 10 minutes. So I was really happy that I had segments of the GoPro video like this to capture everything he did. Now, in a nutshell, what Jim did is he ripped out all the batteries. He ripped out the old steel slide tray that supported the batteries, and then rebuilt a double layered floor. He put in the walls that go up the sides. He custom cut them so they fit as tightly as humanly possible, straight up along the top, to make it as airtight and as insulated as possible. He lined the outside with some type of a metal. As you can see, he was siliconing in the segments. They were covered with gray carpeting, and I'm telling you, by the time he was done, it looked like it came right from the factory, just like Newmar would make it. And quite honestly, that was something that all three of these guys said many times, is that they wanted to make everything look as factory direct as they could, even though they all knew, as well as I, that we were doing modifications to the factory unit. Now, when I sat down to do the editing for all of these segments, I had originally thought that I was going to just do one giant video to show how this process went. And it became real obvious, not too long into it, that it would be best served if I did it in 3 segments. This one basically introducing you to what we're going to do. Part 2 video will show in detail all of the work that Jim had to do up front to get it ready for the electronics guy, Matt, to work on. And then the last video will show Justin and Matt working, putting all the componentry together, tying all the wires together, and eventually getting the equipment to work. None of these videos are intended to be a do-it-yourself instruction guide on how to do it. Actually, the opposite. This is to show you how you can have it professionally done at a place that you won't have to worry about doing any major changes that are semi-irreversible and then you're stuck with it. So that's why I'm bringing this to you in detail on all of the different steps and stages involved. Now, this is when you take that big roomy cavern that Jim created for us, and literally within a few hours, all of a sudden you're going, hey, do we have enough room to put this in? So I could tell you that there was many times Matt, myself, and Justin would skate some of these components around to get them just like we wanted them. And sometimes the way we wanted them wouldn't work because the cables that come out of the battery and the giant thick cables on the BMS are kind of fixed length. And I think if you laid this out in infinite detail, maybe on a CAD program, or did it on your kitchen table with full-size templates, you could probably get the cable lengths perfect and maybe order them custom that way. But that's not the way we did it. We stuck with the standard componentry. So I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on part 2, which is the demo carpentry work, and part 3, which you're kind of looking at right here, when all the componentry was hooked up in its glory, all of the Victron equipment, the Lithionics 960 amp hours of batteries, and the exciting conclusion when we flip the switch to see if everything still works. So until we get to meet you on the road or in a campground someday, we invite you to join us every Sunday morning on YouTube for another episode of our journey in Myles.